Well, Harmy, England were humiliated in the first game by South Africa, but they paid it back with interest, didn't they? With an astonishing performance, 414 on the board, and then bowling South Africa out for 72. Truly astonishing performance. And it's really interesting as well because South Africa went 2-0 up against Australia and then lost by a record margin of 276 runs. So they're not very good at these dead rubber situations. But I said at the time that the size of the consolation, the size of the victory was a significant consolation for Australia. They put 431 on the board for two. And the size of England's victory as well. I mean, it's the heaviest of all time. And it is a consolation. It's a consolation victory. But I would imagine that, I mean, they'll feel significantly better than if they won by 22 runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, man, I mean, I think you sort of detach the two sort of elements to this series, which is England weren't good enough to win the series. Simple as that. They were well beaten in the games that were alive. But what encourages me about the England, if I'm just looking at England alone, I think there's a lot of things to like about this team. I don't think this team's far away. When we set off the back of the first game and England got belted, and you're going, oh, same old England 50 overs, and we're not playing enough cricket this, and we're not playing enough cricket, 50 over cricket that, and meaningful games this and meaningful games that. Players have just come off the back of the 100. I look at where England have come from in 50 over cricket over the course of the last 2 years to what I'm starting to see evolve, and I'm actually quite encouraged. I think there's some exciting young players in there. There's some really, really talented, explosive components at key areas at the top and at the middle. We are one player short, I think, massively, and we haven't got it in our squad. And I don't even think we've got it in our T20 squad. I don't think Sam Curran's the one, and that's that sort of bowling all rounder to bat at number 7, or three absolute gun bankers of bowling 10 overs at the because of the bits and pieces cricketers we've got. But I think all in all, I'm quite happy where this England side are evolving too, because I think when you look at the side that's gone in the Butler era and the World Cup debacles, I can see light at the end of this tunnel with this team. I really can, even though we were well beaten. We were well beaten in the first game. We looked as though we were devoid of ideas in that first game. But I think coming off the back of the 100, being thrown together, I can give them a little bit of leeway. Second game, South Africa put on a strong performance, and South Africa are a good side, even though it wasn't South Africa's full strength side. But I look at this England side and think, you know what? We need to treat Bethell as a batter. We don't need to treat him as an all-rounder. Treat him as a batter, play him as a batter, make him think as a batter. Because at this minute in time, I look at that team and go, right, from Joe Root to Will Jacks at 4, 5, 6, and 7, anybody can bat in any order, in any given situation, and wherever the game is. And I think we have to look at that, and that encourages me with that front. So, that game at Southampton, I really, really enjoyed the way England, fulfilled their skills. So there are still a huge amount of concerns, though. I still think the captain gets a bit giddy when he's on the front foot. Seen by his dismissal in the at Southampton. I mean, he could have given himself out in the first up, and then got himself out straight away after that. So, look, I think all in all, England for me were well beaten in the two games that were proper games. But I'm not saying it's a dead rubber. I'm just looking at England and thinking, are England on a trajectory to get better, going towards a world tournament, which is quite a way away? And the components I'm seeing in this group I quite enjoy, and I think there's a huge amount of light at the end of this tunnel.
What did you make of Harry Brook? I mean, I love the fact that he hasn't been coached, he hasn't been subjected to media training, and he doesn't come out with dull cliches. And I quite like the fact that sometimes he sounds a bit silly and giddy, as you said. I mean, he described the Lord's defeat as an awesome effort, and he said that there's no reason that we can't make 400 or 450 every time. that we play. And when he's asked about strategy and tactics, he says we just need to whack it and be aggressive and take wickets and score runs. And I, I'm not being facetious. I do quite like that sort of naive freshness.
I do like that, but I do suggest that if he's going to take over from Ben Stokes, that he might need to rein it in a little bit because, I mean, that's fine once in a while, but I think people will then, especially the way some of our media, look at things, that we will pick on Harry for what he's saying, and I do think there is the naivety that's there shouldn't be there anymore because he's been around a long time as Harry Brook. He really has. And I think he's done enough press conferences to understand. But I don't mind some of the stuff that he's saying. I used to hate it when you get criticised as a player for not saying anything in the media. And then when you go and throw everything out there, you get criticised for saying everything. So you can't really win if you're in Harry's shoes because of the character he is. Ben Duckett's exactly the same. I'd much rather listen to Ben Duckett and Harry Brook than listen to some players who just troll out the usual cliches. But I think that over time, it's fine, Harry, when you're part of one of 10. But when you're leader of 11, you might have to put a little bit more, I think, not meat on the bones, but I think you might have to just rein it in a little bit in a way which is a little bit more context of just saying we want to go out and whack it and we want to take as many wickets as quickly as we possibly can. So, look, that's not worrying me, right? From Harry's point of view, I love that boy to bits. He averages 60 in Test match cricket. He is on the upward trajectory to be one of the best players that we've ever produced. My concern sometimes with Harry is when we're in a good place, I don't think he takes us to the next level when he goes out to bat. I sometimes think I'd rather Harry Brook go in at 30 for 3 than he would go in at 300 for 3 because all of a sudden he makes a calamitous decision to then get out, and you're going, you're better than that, Harry. You are, and I think Southampton showed that. Tried that in the first ball, then got out the second ball, and you're going, you know what? But I think that is a little bit of excitement and naivety to try and want to push and show his leadership on his team. So there is a fine balance, and I'm sure he'll get there. But if you're offering a reserved Harry Brook to go back into his shell and not say a great deal compared to the one I've got at this moment in time, I think I'd much rather have the one I've got at this moment in time, and hopefully management can try and help him iron him out onto a path that it just bounces every now and again off the sidewalk.
This isn't a comment on England's fitness because we've seen them train and we know how fit they are. But I think that England have lost their way since the last World Cup because of their unwillingness, or in fact, just forget how much hard work 50 over cricket can be, particularly in those middle overs. I mean, they want to play T20 cricket. They want to express themselves. They want to hit boundaries, as Harry says. They want to whack it, and I just think that they've maybe forgotten that there is still time to kill, so to speak, in 50 over cricket, and that 50 overs is quite a long time, and you can be bowled out. And does that? Am I making sense? It just seems to me that they need another Joe Root. I mean, Joe Root played one of the best ODI innings, that you'll see, and it wasn't explosive because he carried the team to the point where they were able to score 400.
Yeah, I get that. I totally agree with you. And I think I think when you look at it, and this is the possible, probably the thing I was saying about Harry just a second ago, that if you just go out and assess the situation that little bit better in a way which is you've already got a team where you want them. I mean, there's a couple of times now where you see Brook get out for a low score off the back of it. You're thinking, right, just take 10 balls, take 15 balls. And he might turn around to me and say, Harmy, you know what? That's not me. I would just want them to hit 6s and 4s and going. And I'll counter that by going, best player we've ever produced in Josh Buttler. He takes 10 balls. And I tell you what, when he takes 10 balls, if he does take 10 balls, he backs it up after 25, 30, 35. If he's still batting at 55, the likelihood is he's somewhere close to 100. So that's just a little bit, that possibly comes with a little bit more experience, a little bit more team onus of knowing where your sort of group's at. Bethell, I enjoyed what Jacob did. I know we probably talk about him, but I enjoyed the way he went out at number 4 in both innings and batted like a batter. And I think that middle period in the game is such a way where I think England have got the opportunity to give themselves a chance, because they've got power at the top. They've got somebody at number 3 who is one of the best players, not of all time, but in all situations, in Joe Root. And he shows that. And he gives you that chance to set your platform. Now, for me, man, as 425 in 50 overs, you can get there in multiple ways. I mean, you can. And people might say, well, that's stupid. An over all time. No, you can have a quiet period in the middle where you do take a bit of responsibility on respecting the bowler that's actually bowling well at the time, and then waiting for the guy who's going to come back on later on, who you've already got his number, who you can then smash. And I think that as a batting unit, I think that's possibly what we're lacking a little bit. But when I look back at it, and you say right at the very start, I look at this group and go, the light at the end of the tunnel is there's some very, very exciting talent here who I think are replacing the ones who probably got a bit older in that 2003 World Cup time. And I think if we get that third seamer who can bowl 10 overs, or that all-rounder who can bowl seam, we have got a great chance of propelling this group into what would be the top echelons, as opposed to fighting at number 6, 7, and 8 in the ICC World Rankings.